Guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to actually hit the go live button. So now we're actually live.
Okay, there you go.
All right. We're here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Michael Dougall. Michael, how you doing?
Hey, really good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to have you on, and also just completely shattered the illusion of me being professional at all with this startup today. Starting at a different time of day, which already threw me off, and then I updated my Mac, and everything is just super weird. Like, I shouldn't have done it. I knew better. You never update software.
Well, to be honest, I did the same thing. I updated Triplex last night, so let's see how that goes.
So we got a brand new version of Triplex, brand new version of Mac OS. It's we're just gonna go full chaos mode. But it's going to be great because this is, I mean, you're working on such cool stuff that I feel like no matter what happens today, we're going to have a blast. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about you. So for folks who aren't familiar, do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with the fun stuff first, and then maybe we can talk about career and tech and things. I am a not so recent father, but I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she's absolutely beautiful. Spitting image of me and her mother, absolutely handful. I live in Sydney, Australia. So right now it is 7:06 a.m. And luckily we were able to push back the stream a few hours. So I didn't have to get up at 3. That was probably like 2. So
I still can't believe you were willing to get up at 3 to do it at the 9 a.m. Pacific
time. Do it for the fans, man. Do it for the fans. I was on Discord just before saying I'll be on this live stream, and someone was like, It's Thursday. It's not Friday. Where do you live? And I'm like, Sydney, Australia. Like, oh, it's basically Japan.
Greetings from the future, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I also play ice hockey for fun in Sydney, Australia. Avid fan and avid player. Recently got a gold medal in our Div 3 competition. So very happy about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And yeah, professionally, I've been working at Atlassian on the design system for 6 years. So I'm a principal software engineer over at Atlassian. And yeah, we do a lot of interesting things, problems at scale. And most recently, I've been contributing to a CSS and JS library called Compiled for Work, just to add some features that we need. We can talk about that another time. Today's for 3D, not CSS and JS.
Exactly.
Exactly. And yeah, Triplex, obviously we're here to talk about that today. And I guess I can explain a little bit about that later. But yeah. I started that in like November last year. So I was on paternity leave. I had a lot of free time because Atlassian also gives very generous paternity leave. And I was trying to make games in the browser, and it was annoying. And I was like trying to move things around in code, and it was insane. And then I'm like, but what if I could just move it to the spot that I want it to be in? And that was kind of the origin story: frustration and hair pulling.
So was this one of those like true developer origin stories where you set out to build a game in the browser, you realized that there was a problem where you could solve it by building a tool, and you have still never built a game in the browser because you've spent all your time on the tool ever since?
Yeah, basically. I will say, there's a prototype that you can technically go to that's hosted on Vercel. I'll link it later if you want. But hey, people loved that prototype because it was a point and click game, and there's a little chicken, and everyone's like, oh, it's the chicken.
I do love that. I like games are one of those things that I've built a handful of very rudimentary games, but I've never built anything. I haven't gotten as far as things like collision detection, right? So nothing advanced at all. And it's always one of those things I'm like, I wish I had the time to dig into that and do it. But again, you know, like you said, there are just things that always trip me up about it. And one of the biggest things for me is this idea of like a model. And, you know, you either have a sprite and you are trying to manipulate that sprite based on which direction the character is pointing or what state they're in, or you've got an actual 3D model, which I don't even understand how to start on, which is one of the reasons I'm excited that you're here. And that's before you even get into all of the, you got physics, you've got all these things that are probably not hard, but they feel too big when I start thinking about all the things I would have to learn if I wanted to make a game. So I guess without getting into like a full sidebar on my own existential struggle with capability of that sort, let's talk a little bit about kind of what got you down that path in the first place. So you had this idea on paternity leave. Had you built games before?
Not exactly. So a little bit of the background is when I was in high school. So we're talking a long time ago. I really liked doing 3D modeling. So I started 3D modeling actually in primary school, I think, using a software application called Milkshape 3D. So if anyone ever did Half-Life mods, you would have probably seen that tool. And there was also a mod for Half-Life called Earth's Special Forces. It was like a Dragon Ball Z mod. I loved that game. It was great. And I was in those forums when I was like 14 or something, making 3D models with the forum. It was like obviously before Twitter days. So you'd make like little images and you're like, here's how to do, here's how to skin your model better or something. Here's how to do how to merge vertices. And I always wanted to get into game dev, but I never did. I think it's probably a common trend for a lot of folks in the industry. That said, I hear that being a professional game dev's not the best, so I think maybe it worked out.
I have heard those rumors, yes.
Still, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, still passion. So I really wanted to get into game dev. Never really did. Had a little bit of experience, and then just kind of decided to, like, 15 plus years later, pull the trigger and just say, well, let's just figure out how to do this. React 3.5 is a thing now. You can make games with pretty much anything and web tech.
Right.
And let's just kind of flail and figure it out.
Well, and it seems like now we've got access to, like, the GPU is in the browser. We've got WebGL. We've got all these things that were previously you just couldn't do that much in the browser because the browser was limited in what it could access in the computer's capabilities. But it feels like those walls are coming down, and now we're seeing these really intense 3D experiences built in the browser, and they're not laggy. You're not like burning any more performance than you would be if you were running it as a native app, which is really exciting. So I guess we've done a show in the past with Paul about React 3 Fiber. It was super fun. We were able to get I think we got a little 3D model of a rocket in the browser. You could kind of spin it and do fun stuff with it with your mouse. But it was a little headbendy to me because so much of that was, okay, so now there's this math you got to do, or there's this like setting you got to tweak, and you just got to know what that setting is called. And it led to me never actually going back and doing any more 3D modeling because I just felt this gap of like what I wanted to do and all the things I felt like I needed to know before I could do it. And then I saw your demo, and I saw Triplex, and one of the things that I got really excited about in Triplex is the way that I learn typically is by twisting knobs, right? If I can look at all the settings that are available and I can poke stuff, I start to piece together, all right, so this affects that thing and this affects that thing, and now I can sort of see it happening. And so you've built effectively a user interface, like a Figma-like or Photoshop-like, Blender-like kind of experience for getting a React 3 Fiber component, a 3D model, and tweaking, like twiddling with knobs.
Exactly. It's exactly. I've remade Figma, except it's 3D. Done.
Ship it.
VCs, my DCs, my DMs are open.
So, had you ever built anything like this before?
Not to the level that Triplex is, but I have a lot of side projects that I'm sure everyone listening probably has one or two in their back pockets. Like So I've never made anything like Triplex, but I've made a few things that build on the technology that Triplex is using. So like that CSS and JS library I was talking about, so it's called Compiled. And I started that as a side project, and then it just kind of carried away for Atlassian to pick it up. That's a build time library, a lot of AST transformation that really helped get into the mindset that I need to be for Triplex. It's very TypeScript heavy as well. So like when I was in CSS and JS land, and this is like two plus years ago, I was also learning a lot about TypeScript compiler and how that all works. I literally have a little handbook about writing a TypeScript, not writing a TypeScript compiler, but how to use it, right? And that's on my GitHub. But again, it's just like different aspects kind of all led me to end up making Triplex. Like I have my 3D background, and that again contributes. So, and then I work on the design system, very knowledgeable about the UI space and React, and again, all this mishmash just kind of led me to here. Yeah.
Yeah. You still with me?
Hello?
Yeah, sorry. That was weird.
Because I live in Australia. I don't know, bad internet.
All good, all good. So I'm very curious. It seems to me like, and I know we're probably not going to get into like the building of an app like this, but you mentioned AST transformations. You mentioned being TypeScript heavy, and
so for those curious, AST is abstract syntax tree. In case anyone's not sure what it is, it's basically imagine your code and imagine that as a data structure, and that's kind of like AST.
Michael's doing my job for me today. Thank you very much. Yes. So
Oops.
that was one of those things that for whatever reason, that was a hurdle I could overcome, and I did get into AST transformations, and I had an absolute blast. It makes you feel like a wizard, right? It's like true alchemy, where you can take something that is in JavaScript and then you can sort of grab all the component pieces out of it and you can reassemble it in something else, but it's syntactically or informationally the same. And that just feels so cool to be able to do that, or to, transform. Like I did some stuff where I was taking image elements and I needed to replace the images with a version that was hosted on a CDN so that we could do automatic optimization using, it was like Cloudinary or something. And I was like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. It's too hard. You can't modify HTML like that. Sure enough, ASTs, it was like, oh, wait, you can. And you're able to build this stuff that I was 100% convinced was impossible, because I was like, you can't write a regex that good. That was like what happened in my head, right? And so now, like where this is sort of grown to for you is you were able to take that knowledge, you were able to take your TypeScript knowledge and the other compounding knowledge of being, in 3D modeling and everything, and you have built, if I can be as reductive as possible, a set of user interface controls that are mapping my user input when I twist knobs or change numbers or settings. You are taking that through an AST transformation, which is updating the React 3 Fiber component, or the code that is
just updating source code.
So that's really cool, because that was the big gap for me, was that I didn't know that some of those knobs existed to be twiddled in the first place, because the defaults are all there. And if you don't, I'm not going to write every single available prop into my every single available React 3 Fiber component. So I don't know that I can you can twist this and spin it, or, something like that. That's really cool. And it also, it makes me feel really good about the, how much further I could go, right? Like, you're giving me a little bit of a boost as a budding 3D enthusiast to actually go out and try stuff in a way that I maybe wouldn't have had the courage to do if I'd had to wade through a ton of docs to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, Triplex is really keen on lowering the barrier of entry but also scaling up to very complicated use cases. So I love to say it has that like scale down, scale up aspect. Like you could go in and just do a box and change its color and it's fine. Like the simplest scene you could make, but you could scale it up to like large scale web games as well. And it wants to do both. Yeah.
Nice. Well, so I think I'm abstract enough here that this isn't really, for anybody who's watching, that's probably not like connecting exactly what we're talking about. So why don't I switch us over into the pair programming view so that folks can see what's going on. And before I start talking about Triplex, I'm going to do a quick shout out. This episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. We've got Amanda here with us today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify and Vetsu Code, both kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I appreciate very much. Thank you. And we are talking to Michael, and I have forgotten what your Twitter handle is to link to you directly.
Underscore Dougs. Douges. Yeah. Sorry. Hey, it's me.
Hey, there you are. All right, and this is actually the post that I saw that got me excited to talk to you. Also, folks who have been watching the show for a while may have noticed I'm experimenting with light mode. We're going to see how this goes for me. So this if you want to go follow Michael, you can get over there, and we are talking about Triplex today. So this is Triplex. This in the back is a 3D model, and you can see that it's reacting to my mouse as I go left and right. The shadow moves, and this is all done in the web, right? Like this is all. This isn't video. This isn't anything. This is a 3D model rendered in the browser.
It's a 3D model rendered in the browser. Exactly.
Extremely cool stuff. And I'm starting to see more and more 3D showing up in websites now. It seems like maybe this is going to be one of the next visual trends, is trying to get 3D to play a bigger role in web design and web development. So it feels like now's the time to start figuring out how this stuff works so that we can be ready when it does show up and our clients start demanding it.
It's ripe.
It does feel like now's the time. So earlier I downloaded this to make sure that I had it ready. So this is it's Mac only at the moment?
It's Mac and Windows.
Mac and Windows.
So basically, like if you go to there, it'll tell you depending on your OS if you can download it or not. So Mac, Windows, no Linux yet, but there is a little bit of ask for Linux. I just kind of need to get a parallel, so Mac OS parallels to run it and figure out if it actually works.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
It's all web tech. Technically, it all runs like across OS, right? But the
sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I'm just making an assumption that now that I've downloaded it, which would be step one, I'm going to open it. And as you can see, I'm opening this for the first time. So I have no prior experience with Triplex at all. We're going to learn together today. What should I do first?
I love this pair programming session, by the way. So the first thing I want to do is create a project. So we've done nothing. Maybe it needs to be like a getting started thing. But anyway, we want to create a project. So what you want to do is you want to find a folder that you want to install it to. So if you have a projects folder, yeah, exactly. Create a new folder, click create, and then you'll be presented with something else.
Okay. Okay, this is fine. Yeah. All right. NPM.
Oh, we're going to be here for a while. Oh, wow. This is really quick.
I got that fiber internet.
Damn.
Okay. So sorry. I've got this. I'm actually going to split this one off to, come on, go over here. We'll give ourselves a full screen window. Okay. Oh.
So
whoa, look at this.
Since it's October, the template is currently a Halloween theme. So yeah, it's a little scene put together, and yeah, I'll let you explore and I'll answer questions.
So did you model this? Like you were like, let's make a starting project, and you just threw this together?
No. So basically on Twitter, there was a bloke who. It's kind of like a quick, long, short story. Someone on Twitter was made these assets. Someone else on Twitter was like 3JS Halloween challenge. Let's go for like vanilla 3JS. And then I'm like, that's a great idea, except I'm going to steal that for Triplex.
Mm.
So then I'm like, Triplex has joined the Halloween challenge, and now I updated one of the templates or added a new template. Sorry, for Halloween.
Nice.
Yeah. So when Christmas is around the corner, expect a Christmas theme. It's got to be snowing or something. I don't know.
This is great though. So looking at this, just kind of getting my bearings. We've got a what appears to be a pretty straightforward like 3D scene, and from my very limited experience in tools like Blender, it looks like I can grab one of these things and then I can like move them around. And now we've got a flying lamppost. Yeah, this is cool. Okay. And then you can like throw it through the ground if you want. And then I see over here, we've got things like, so these, I don't exactly know what these are, but.
So if you press, if you press Shift F for a second.
Shift F. Oh.
So this is the post component. Now we're inside the post component right now.
Okay.
And then there's like, I was going to point it on my screen, but obviously you won't see that. There's like a little actions thing, and it looks like a go back or like an exit goes that way.
This
Top
one
left.
here.
Yeah, exactly. Click.
Okay.
So then now we're back in the scene component. So in the left-hand side, you basically see every like top level component that's rendered by the scene component. And then when you're opening like that for that carrot or whatever accordion, you will see all the components or all the elements rendered in that component. So when you open post, group, GLTF, and point light, that is rendered by the post component.
Got it. Okay. So we're kind of looking at like I have in React parlance here. I have my fence component, and that's this one here. I've got another instance of that fence component. And the thing that's interesting about this is, so we've got two fence components, but one of them is kind of busted. And then we've got two posts. So two instances of that component, different tree components. So there's the kind of like dead trees. And then we've got this like autumn tree here. Are these like, are these fences like this is one fence component and there's like a toggle for busted?
Exactly. So in the right-hand panel, you'll see all the props that are available on that component.
Okay.
So for example, the variant prop could do interesting things.
Ooh. Oh yeah, and you can change it into a pillar. Broken pillar. Oh, cool.
And this is just a React component. These are just props on a component that just render different things.
That's very cool.
And if you press, for fun, if you press Command Z and Command Shift Z, you can undo, redo.
Oh, okay. All right. So Command Z, Shift Z. Okay, great. Come in here on one of these, and then we can kind of see. Oh, you got all sorts of.
This asset pack was big. There was like 50 assets, and I was like, "Whoa,
that is going to be a big Halloween."
Cool.
No, I love this. Like this is really cool to see. And yeah, we got the little shrine, we got the crypt. Like, this is dope. Shrine candles, regular shrine.
Oh, also, if you press F, you can focus in the scene. Like, you'll focus the camera into a thing as well.
And then you're nice and close to it, so you can see what's going on.
Exactly.
Nice. That's great. This is like, okay, so I'm much further along now than I would be if I were, holy crap, look at this. Look at all these different trees you can do. Yeah, I can see myself playing around in here, having a good time, making myself a, like, cool little Halloween scene.
Yeah, like definitely need to think about like what's the most basic thing you can do, and really the most basic thing is just building a scene. You just want to position things in 3D space and get it exactly what you want, and being able to do that in like a visual editor is so much easier than it would be if you were to do it in code. Like if you were to move something to a specific spot and then save it,
well, like look at this.
Try and do the same thing in code.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like here we've got these 3 positioning things, which I'm assuming are like X, Y, Z.
Exactly, yeah.
And so to move this feels like I don't even know. Yeah, like, okay, so 3.5 off of center, 3.5 the other direction off of center over here. And then like I broke this, so it should be 0. But like this would be a nightmare if I was looking at it in code. I can sort of visualize things on a grid. So I'd be able to get there, but like, boy, would it be nicer to just come in here and say, all right, I want this one to be a little closer, so I'm going to drag it this way. And I want this one to be a little closer, so I'm going to drag it this way. Like, that's much better. That feels a lot nicer.
Yeah. This is literally the origin story of frustration. It's like, if you did this in code, you would be tabbing back and forth between like your IDE and the browser, being like, is that good enough? No. Ugh. You know, and then keep going back and forth. It's just unnecessary, unproductive.
Mm-hmm. And this is great too, because like then you do have that fine-grained tweaking where I picked it up off the ground a little bit, so it was like floating and the shadow was weird, so I can set it back to be 0. It's right on the ground. Yeah. But then these, I don't care if these are weird numbers. This is great. This is like, and then these asset packs, I can Google around and I can find somebody who's made an open asset pack and make whatever I want with it, right? Like
exactly.
If I want to add, okay, I'm going to add another tree. So if I want to do that, can I find...
The search isn't great right now.
Let's see, assets, fence, floor, tree. I'm going to add another tree. And we'll add this one. I'm going to stick that thing. Oh, cool, you can spin it. That's dope. I can have it fall over.
Yeah,
if you
so
want.
If you see the little controls at the bottom of the bottom middle, they're the transform controls.
Nice, that's cool. All right, so then I can switch it this way. I can move it out here.
And there's also hotkeys, T for translate, R for rotate, S for scale.
Nice. And are those like if I hover over these, yeah, it shows you the hotkey to get into that. That's nice, great. Then I can come back out here. And no, wait, it's this one.
So you had a little bit of a gotcha because you added the raw asset to the scene, which works.
But I'm seeing that I lost my variant.
Exactly. So if you go back to the add drawer, and you can also delete that component.
I'm going to delete that one. Back to my add drawer. Components. Exactly, so now, oh, look at this. I got a pumpkin. We're putting a pumpkin in.
Drag and drop doesn't currently work. Sorry.
And there is my pumpkin. This is great. And like, you can just see, okay. And I'm already seeing like how quickly I can make this stuff work because like, all right, now I got a coffin and I can go to my coffin and I can, let's rotate it a little bit. We're going to, put it over here and then we'll come back over here. And like, this is so cool. I would not have imagined that within we're 34 minutes into this. I probably jabbered at you for the first 20. So about 15 minutes into opening up this app, I'm actually building a scene. And
you're an expert now.
I mean, this is like, This is much further than I thought I would have been able to go in a single day. Like, I think the last time I played with 3D, I was able to get somebody else's model and put it into a website. I did not change those models. Like, it was like, here's a free model of a rocket. You're going to go do that. And I could like mess with color, but I couldn't really, like, I'm not moving anything. This is really cool. This makes me feel like, you know, I could go out and actually play with this a little bit and make a little level in a game or something where you've got a, you know, a crypt that you like, oh, here's some obstacles. Here's a stack of coffins you got to climb or whatever it is. Like, that stuff is really fun.
If we wanted for a second, we could go side by side with your IDE. So if you click view source in the top left.
View source in the top left.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to...
That may or may not open something.
It did.
Hopefully it opens something. Nice.
Okay.
So maybe like 2/3 in Triplex. It's not the best experience in a small thing. But the main point is we can save it and see the source code update. And that's a party trick, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go into the editor, Command S, bam, source code's updated.
There's my pumpkin.
And if you change the source
there's my
code,
coffin.
so like delete the pumpkin, for example, or do whatever.
All right, I'm going to delete the coffin because the coffin's currently in the viewport. There it is.
Nice.
Saved, and...
Nope, syntax error.
Where's my syntax error? Wait, what did I do? Oh, I lost my
fragment.
fragment. Okay, deleting my coffin. And there it goes.
Bam.
Bring it back. Oh, that's cool. That is very cool.
Yeah. And if you have a repo set up with Prettier, it'll also use Prettier to format your code when you save. Yeah. By default, it uses the TypeScript formatter if you don't have Prettier, but obviously it doesn't work fantastic sometimes.
This is... yeah, because look at this, y'all. Like, this is what I was dealing with before that just made me walk away. Is like, sure, there's stuff I could do in here, but like, I'm not gonna do that. And like, you know, maybe does this have? Oh, it does.
Yeah, it has IntelliSense.
It has IntelliSense, so that would actually help. But
yeah, I will say, like, the entire editor, one of the backbones that make everything possible is TypeScript and types. So like Triplex has nothing hard coded to say what props should be what. It's literally just reading the types from your components and JSX elements and then rendering them, or getting the data and then using that data to then render UI. So if you update any of the components, if you update any of the props, if you remove props, the UI will update. And that's kind of one of the promises, I think, for this technology. Like, there's no hard-coded assumptions. It is all dynamic.
yeah,
And if you squint, it's not even specific to 3D.
oh,
It's just JSX. It's just JSX elements.
Yeah, so theoretically speaking, this editor has additional uses.
Exactly. VC funds. DM me.
I mean, this is kind of, it's one of those things that I think a lot of companies have tried for, and it tends to be, you know, this is it's a tough problem space to be in. Because, you know, the idea of like having code as a source of truth, I think, is relatively new. I think what we've been seeing in the past is that everybody treated whatever the original asset was as the source of truth, and we see that in like Figma to code or those other, you know, document to code or whatever, where you're trying to generate code from whatever the original product was. And we're starting to see this go the other way. There's a company called Storybook to Design that's been on the show. You can find the episode if you search for it, where they go the other way and they use Storybook components or their own design system components to export into Figma. So the code is the source of truth, and Figma generates components based on those components. And this is kind of that same idea. And I remember having a conversation with Dan Mall a while back on the show where he was saying, ultimately when it comes to design with a design system or your 3D rendering or any of those things, all of these things are targeted toward, when you're building for the web, the code that shows up on the website. Everything else is an intermediate asset, and it's effectively trash because the only thing that ultimately lives is the code that shows up on the site. So if you're optimizing for an asset that isn't the final product, you're putting yourself in a weird space. This feels like it's doing things in a way that I feel confident in using, because if Triplex suddenly, you decide you don't want to work on it anymore and it goes out of date, I've still got my code.
Exactly. I find that's one of the value props, right? Like, Triplex doesn't make you do anything that you don't want to do. The model is you write your code, and without adding literally anything, we can render it in the UI. You can have controls. You have undo, redo in a very powerful, productive editor. And if you decide that, there's either something else or something that you'd rather move to, or you just don't want to use visual editors anymore out of principle, that's fine. But your code's still unchanged, and you can do whatever you want with it. I find that pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. A lot of the editors as well, like even in the design space or 3D space. So I'm talking, let's say the design tools like Figma, the no-code tools like, what is the Framer, for example, right? Then the 3D variation, Spline, like they're all fantastic, but they're proprietary. They own the backend. They own the output. They own basically everything. So if you flip it and you go code first, but you still have the same visual editing experience, you're in control. You're in the driver's seat. And you can also scale it up and down to literally whatever you need, because you can just code it rather than waiting on a feature that they need to build.
Really, yeah.
And obviously there's like non-engineers can also jump in here and change things as well. So that's also
and I kind of think neat. That's like, to me, that seems like the really killer feature here is that I can give this to a designer and say, get this scene looking the way that you want it to look. And then I'm not trying to translate that into code later. I just get to take what they built and put it into the web page, and now I'll go make it interactive or whatever the thing is. Like there's a really good designer to developer handoff if that is necessary, if you're not the person doing all of the work here. Yeah, this cauldron, this is fun. I could sit in here all day and design this scene. Like this is extremely fun.
So there's another fun tool, or a fun feature, sorry. So in the top left, next to where you exited the component, if you click that little dial. So if everyone's familiar with like React providers, this is the provider config. So in the same vein, you define a provider component, you give it some props, and now you can change these values for just like the entire environment, the entire scene. So again, no hard coding. This is just props given to a component that's been represented in the UI.
That's cool. And, I love that. And like it's subtle, but like look at that. You kind of get these little spooky effects. That's fun.
And I can keep pointing things out as we go. I won't give all the secrets just yet.
Great. I mean, no, this is great. And like, while you were pointing things out, I was able to, I added a few more decorations. I messed with some things over here. Like This is really it's it's coming together. It's very spooky.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So like, oh, sorry, keep going.
I was going to ask. So the next thing that I was thinking about is like from here, I'd probably want to start messing with a little bit more light, right? So I can see that you've got a few things here, and I see this this point light. And is this the sort of thing that like this is an asset in the pack, or are there things built into Triplex for like I need to, give something a light source? How would I do that?
Yeah, awesome. Great question. So it's not built into Triplex,
Okay.
but there are environment, for lack of a better word, like host elements similar to React.
Okay.
So React 3 Fiber has host elements from 3JS, and you're
Okay.
able to use those. So for example, if you go back to the add panel and you go to built-in, now you've got lights, and you can filter them with the filter selection if you want to, type stuff in and see it filtered. But yeah, you can find a light here and add it in. And yeah, so for example, a directional light or a point light could be fun.
Okay, so here's my point light,
Yeah.
and then you can
So
just
3JS recently changed how light works. So now they call it physically correct lighting. So before, with an intensity of 1, a light would kind of light up an entire scene. Now you kind of have to do intensity of 50 or something. So I'll let you figure out where that is.
So down here, I'm looking at here's my intensity.
There's also a search input if that helps.
Look at that. So you can kind of decide how bright your lights are. Get into some color. We want spooky green light. Oh, here's what I want to do. I want to put this in this cauldron. Yeah. That's the right move. We want spooky green light coming out of the cauldron. How fun is this? How long could everybody spend just doing exactly this? Because for me, it would probably be the rest of my life. Oh, that's so fun. So then we got like spooky green light coming out of our cauldron, and the intensity we can keep turning up until it's like wild, or we can take it down to something that's probably a little more like spooky ambient.
Exactly. And if you slap on cast shadow, that'll also look pretty good.
Oh.
So if you press F, we can like really zoom in and
look at this.
Yeah. Nice.
You kind of drop it in, you get like real spookiness. Okay, this is fun. This is the sort of thing I could definitely play with all day. And then there's a whole bunch of buttons that I don't know what they do, but we can start checking buttons and figuring out what they are for. Name it. Oh, what was that?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, like, especially with the host elements, there's a lot of props that you're like, I don't understand what these are. But they usually come with descriptions. So for example, if you hover over decay, it might tell us what it is. I actually don't know what decay does, to be honest.
The amount light dims along the distance of the light. So the lower the decay is, the more intense the light remains. But this is like, it's like, oh, it's not very strong light. It's just kind of like a spooky little green glow. But it's the kind of stuff that like, it's minor, but look how much atmosphere it provides to do something like that, where you get like a little bit of spooky green glow.
Exactly.
Man, I love this stuff.
Oh, so bright.
You can like tuck it inside there. It's dope.
And while we're here, you press that toggle button next to the color input, but maybe you didn't know what it does. Do you want me to tell you about it?
I had a guess because I pushed it a couple times and it looked like it was cycling through like different styles of color input. So this one is pretty obviously a color picker. Don't know what that one is, but I know this is an RGB input.
Yeah.
So what's this one?
I think it's technically hexadecimal, so it might be a number.
Oh, it gives you
Yeah.
some.
Input's not really made for it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're right. It is cycling through input types. But again, this isn't hard coded in Triplex. This is all TypeScript and getting the data and using the data. So this prop is a union type of 3 values: string, number, and probably a tuple of 3 values, RGB, which are all numbers as well. So there's no hard coded.
That's so that
It's just TypeScript.
This is super cool. I love this. Like this is super fun. There's so much. All right, so just in the general sense of like play, this is ticking a lot of my boxes. Like you can
Nice.
get in here and have a lot of fun with this. I don't know what I did to make these visible, but whatever, they're fine.
Oh, the lights.
Yeah.
So they're just light helpers. So this is technically sort of hard coded, but not really. Triplex will render scene helpers for you without you having to do anything. So if this was a regular 3JS scene and you opened it in your browser, you wouldn't see where the lights are. You would have to write code to show where the lights are to then be able to move it somewhere, or at least see where it is to then move it somewhere. With a visual editor and with the leverage it provides, you don't have to do that. You don't write any extra code. You just render what you need to render, and you let the editor handle the rest.
It's super cool. Are there any helpers for like, I want to duplicate this a bunch of times because it looks like this is sort of tiled, right?
Yeah, there's a feature request. I haven't implemented it yet, but it is high on the list. Just not yet.
So really quickly,
sorry, you have to meticulously press that button 20 times.
which is
I'm sorry.
Good because you can, and then you can like this. This is so fun. And then we've got our floor items here, and we can pick different things. Doesn't look like somebody requested leaves. I don't see leaves in this pack, but we can do a rib cage.
Yeah, in this universe, there's no leaves. Sorry.
Just have like a hanging rib cage there, or maybe we can do a chest. Great. This is fun. Just some bones. Like,
See, how much better is this than regular web dev? Who cares about buttons? We can do bones now.
you're exactly right. Like, this is exactly how I feel. Is I don't want to write another line of code ever. I just want to make spooky graveyards. Oh, I love this. This is it. Like, what I like about these sort of visual things is it gives you that immediate feedback loop that's really challenging when you don't have, like, when you're writing code and there's a chance that you put the code in the wrong format and something breaks and all that kind of stuff. It makes it really challenging to get into the flow of just playing. And these visual tools, like, I'm sure I can get myself into a corner here with some of this stuff, but like, being able to just come in here and say, I don't know, let's just put a few more bones on the ground. I think that's going to be really fun. And I'll just, keep moving these around until they look about right. And then you just kind of find yourself in this space where instead of worrying about what numbers I need or like what the syntax of the code is, I can just keep kind of hitting plus and adding things to the scene. And it continues to look more and more like what I'm seeing in my head. I could sit here for hours and just tweak this. It's got the same immediate effect of me wanting to continue playing with this and tweaking it as something that I have practiced at for a really long time, like CSS, where I'll sit and just want to like tweak the CSS. I want to get, I can do it like this. I could see that happening. But I've been doing that so long that it's sort of like somebody who's been playing piano their whole life. They can just sit down and play. Like, I can do that with CSS because I've been doing it for 20 years. I can't
Yeah,
do
for
that
sure.
with 3D, but I just did. I just started doing that with 3D because this tool eliminated the barrier to entry for me, and I can just play. That stuff is that gets me really excited, and it gets me, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of promise in these types of tools because it shouldn't require years and years of practice to be able to sit down and play.
It's a funny parallel, to be honest, because like you kind of said it yourself. When it comes to web development, for anyone who's been in the game for a while, like it's second nature. I don't need a visual editor. I got my browser, my IDE. Why would I use a visual editor? It's going to slow me down. And like I legitimately think like that's probably a friction point when it comes to getting web developers into a visual editor environment. Like Triplex isn't the only game in town when it comes to this style. I saw you did a post from Wix, right? Like they've got their own visual editor for React called Codex, and yeah, it's a funny market, to be honest, because no developer I've spoken to is excited about that, even if the tech's amazing. But for everyone else, it could be the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know.
And I think it's sort of like this space that we're in right now is interesting because when you already have a skill set, it's easy to devalue things that make it easier to acquire the skill set. Not out of any we tend to call it gatekeeping, but I think it's more just we're all selfish enough that when we imagine something new coming in, if it doesn't have an immediate benefit for us, we downplay it. And that I think is part of it. But then the other part of it too is that, I know that I put in a lot of time and there were a lot of hard challenges getting from not being able to build a website to being able to build a website like I can today. And so when somebody promises to make it easy for anybody who hasn't learned the things that I've learned, my default is skepticism. Like, you're not going to be able to do it as good as I can because you haven't suffered the way I've suffered, right? And that is gatekeeping, like
like this is kind of a parallel with 3 and React 3 Fiber. But keep going, sorry, I'll keep talking a bit.
But I think that's like for us, it's difficult to perceive the value of a tool that wasn't designed for you. Is really what I think it is. But for all of the times that I've said I wouldn't use a no-code web editor, as I'm using this, I'm getting the experience of using something that this is for me. I'm not a professional 3D renderer. I don't know any of the things. Like, there are a bunch of words in here that I'm seeing for the first time. I saw something called a frustrum. I don't know what that is, but I just used it, right? And that to me is really cool because it leveled the playing field in a way that, am I going to make the best 3D scenes in the world? No. Am I going to generate my own assets? Not yet, but I can play with these assets and I can make something fun and cool. And that can hopefully give me enough of a running start that I'll stick around to learn the rest of it. And I think that's the piece that is also underestimated is a lot of times it's not saying like, use this tool so that you never have to learn. It's use this tool so you can get results and understand how fun it is to get those results so that you want to learn more and get even better results, right? Like that type of, I don't know, it's like why kids play t-ball. When you don't have the skill yet, it's not fun to play baseball because somebody throws a ball and you miss it every time. That just makes everybody feel sad. But if they put it up on a tee and you get to hit it and you get to play the game, you're like, you know what, that was really fun. I want to keep learning.
For sure, like I really empathize with that. I think at least with like the 3D space, even if you're an absolute professional, top of your game, you're still going to need something like this, to be honest, to be productive. It's just too much friction otherwise, or just a lot of extra boilerplate code that you have to now write and maintain and evolve as your code evolves. And if you don't have to do that,
right,
to get the same effect, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and like Cryogi in the chat is saying, I I want to learn how to add a ghost to this, and there's no ghost in the component pack that I see. So, okay, you're going to have to learn how to do a ghost, but I don't have to learn how to do a ghost and a shrine. And, you know, you can go in and it makes me feel like I would actually follow through on something. Like, you know, that feeling of being like, all right, everything I'm doing is going to come from scratch is just like, that's a lot. Like, I'm busy. I have a full-time job. I can't do all of this extra stuff to have a hobby. But now I can. And like you said, as you get further into this, we're also looking for maintenance shortcuts, because when you build out something, you have to maintain it. And if the maintenance is tedious or really difficult, or, you know, you have to fully build your mental construct of how all this stuff fits together before you can make any changes at all, you're also not going to do it. Right? So making the maintenance of a 3D model faster is a huge power up for a pro. I don't know. I love this.
And I'll also say, technically, this is a 3D scene, just because when we're talking about ghosts and like the creation of assets, that's 3D modeling,
and that's going to happen somewhere else.
Exactly. So that'll happen in Blender.
Got it.
Or, you know, 3D Studio Max or Maya. Can you find a ghost model on the internet? That's exactly where I was going to get to. Cycling_7. Like, Sketchfab exists, and there's also people just making assets that are just free. So you can go to these kinds of websites and you can find what you want, and then you just download it as a web native GLTF file, add it into compile. Like, maybe we can do that now. That'll be fun. You know,
yeah, why not?
I feel like we're already doing that. So
let's take it a little bit further and see what we can get done. So if I'm looking for a ghost,
click the licenses and click free.
Licenses.
Third drop down from the left. Yeah. I think just click all of those. Maybe is that?
Yeah, these as long as I add attribution, right? So let's see. We got all those.
Yeah, the main thing is we want to find a free one that is, in essence, comes with no strings attached.
Yeah. These are fun. These are fun. How about, I like this one. This seems like this is the right ghost for us.
120,000 triangles. Oh my God.
Is that too many?
Should be fine. No, I mean, it's a lot, but
I don't see a single triangle, actually.
Uh-oh.
Where do they keep the triangles?
Hidden as the mesh. So for those who don't know, like, for a quick 3D primer, 3D models are generally made out of triangles, so vertices, edges, and triangles. And you basically just position vertices in 3D space, add edges, and then 3 edges make a face, 3 edges make a triangle.
Oh.
And then you add a bunch of those together, and then you get a mesh. Yeah.
Oh, this one's spooky. That one's a lot less triangles.
It's a lot less triangles. That's really good. I like this.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. Let's get this one. So I'm going to download this 3D model, and I'm going to do that using here. Sure.
I'm sorry you're being shoehorned into creating an account.
No, that's totally fine. I must already have an account. Fine. This is okay. We'll go with Jason 1.
Yeah, exactly.
You suggested that username. How is that one not available? Oh, come on.
Uh-oh. I love it.
What would I like to? Well, I'd like to go back and get that model that I just had.
Can you skip this? No. Oh my gosh.
Enthusiast. I'm an enthusiast.
Budding enthusiast.
Oh no, did I lose my model?
No.
Hold on, where's my ghost? You?
That is what? Maybe if you refresh, is there a bug? That doesn't even look like a ghost.
Yeah, that was like their loading screen or
We
something.
found a bug.
All right, I'm logged in. I got this. I got this thing. We'll make sure that we get the. I'll copy this and
So
GLTF
yep,
because
GLTF. Yeah.
okay. Is there any like TLDR on these for what each one is for?
So they're all different formats of representing 3D models. And actually, GLB might be the better one to download. So I can tell you the difference between GLTF and GLB because I know what they are.
Okay.
FBX and USDZ are like proprietary formats that I can't actually remember who own them. Google's one stop away, or AI now that's taken over. But GLTF is basically just a JSON representation of a open format for the web to just describe a 3D model, and a GLB is the binary form of that.
Okay.
So it's just slightly more compressed.
So should I get the little baby buddy?
Yeah, I think the difference is just the texture size. So maybe just do one megabyte and see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see. All right, so I have downloaded a ghost. Oh, I got it.
So
I literally have
now.
a ghost in the machine right now.
It's a fantastic show, by the way.
Okay, so I've got my GLB here. I have my code over here.
So if you open the whole project, or at least the file explorer, I will say this is something that Triplex wants to handle later, where you can just drag and drop assets into the assets drawer, but you can't do that right now. Sorry. Okay. So if you go into public,
yeah, here's public.
Exactly, yeah. Drag the asset into the assets folder. Make a folder if you want.
So there's my, okay, so I'll make a folder. We'll call it ghost. We'll put our fantasy ghost in here. I'm going to rename this because I turned on this feature in Arc that I think was the wrong thing to do, where it renames things, and it always leads with an apostrophe. And I don't know why.
Is this Arc AI?
I think it is Arc AI doing it's being very AI level helpful. Okay, so I have my ghost. I have added it to an asset. It's in here. So is it auto discovered? Like, can I just go grab it now?
Let's find out.
Oh, here's my components.
God, I hope it is.
Here's my assets.
I'm pretty sure it is. So yeah, increase assets.
Oh. Oh, how big is that ghost? That is okay. All right. Yep. Okay. Let's take you down a little. Oh.
So I just want to paint a picture. Imagine that your scene, like this was all code, and like you didn't have any helpers or something. Like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, you could spend a long time in code to realize that it's way too scaled and you couldn't see it, you know? But with a visual editor, you can see it immediately. You can focus on it. It's all sorted.
Dang it. This is cool.
Maybe we should do a follow-up for like getting into the tech, because there's a lot of interesting things. But as a quick, thought, there is a very fun WebSockets layer that I built that's built on React Suspense and all modern React paradigms that basically syncs from the server, the backend node server, to the front end, and it works really well because it didn't let me down just now.
Yeah, this is super cool. Definitely some weirdness with this model though, because the poor ghost face fell off or something. But from this angle, it looks amazing.
So I actually know what this is. It's not a bug with us. It's definitely a bug with.
Well, I did download like the teeny tiniest version of it too, so it might also be like.
Yeah, it's either something wrong with the file, or it's a 3D model that's been built from a image or something. So it's like at one view it looks correct, but then you're like, yeah.
You twist
So,
it and it, yeah. Oh yeah, because that's like, I think that's the angle it was designed at, and everything looks right, and then you kind of, you move and the eyeballs get all weird.
yeah,
But you know what?
that was
We
pretty
got a
easy.
ghost
That
in
was
this
pretty easy.
graveyard in like 4 minutes, so I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah,
This
good
is good.
job.
So,
So it's so bright though. Oh my God.
yeah, all right. So how do we take this? Take this down just a touch here. We want you to be. I actually don't know how I would even go about doing this.
To make it like slightly opaque.
Yeah, how
So
would?
believe it or not, in 3JS, it's not the web, or at least it's not web tech.
Okay.
So when I first started getting into 3JS, I was like, I just want to get a group and then set that group and everything below it to be slightly opaque, like 50% opacity or whatever. Can't do it. That's not how 3D stuff works. Um, you basically need to give it a material, and then that material you make slightly less. Yeah, I would say it's a little bit too much messing around to get it working on stream.
More than
Um,
we want to do right now.
yeah, but it is possible. Um, maybe I can show you what it would look like natively in if we made a box, and I can show you that, or you can show us that, and I'll just walk you through it, and then
Sure.
you can kind of build up that learning from there.
Okay.
Because it applies in the same way.
So
So if
I
we add a
do like
mesh,
I add a
so
mesh.
yeah, it's a bit mind bendy. You don't add a box, you add a mesh, and then you add a box to that mesh. So if you click in the left hand side where mesh is highlighted, there's a little plus. Clicking that will add a
Oh.
child to that mesh. So if you search for box, so just type BOX and click box, we've added a box.
We've added a box. All right. I'm going to focus on this box.
And yeah, just move it up a little bit so we can just see the full box for all its glory.
All of its boxy glory.
Exactly.
Okay.
High res, high res. So you'll notice it's all white.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, doesn't look like anything. And the reason is because it doesn't have a material. So we need to add a material to this box.
Okay.
So in the same vein, that is a child of mesh. So it's actually not that. Got ya.
Oh, so we go material,
Yes. And then we can just add a mesh standard material.
standard material.
It's all the same. Physical
Oh.
would have been fine as well.
Okay.
So now we've got all the material. We can change the color.
Okay.
And we're also able to make it slightly opaque. So-
Okay. So then we can take like you. Wait.
And I want to touch on you going into the negative values in a second and say, man, isn't that annoying? And ooh, Triplex has something for that. So yeah, if you just type a value between 0 to 1 and then click transparent, yeah, it should. Right. And then maybe smash Command R and see what happens.
Hey.
There we go.
There we go. Hey, we made a ghost. This is so much better. Look at that. Get this ghost out of here. This is the best ghost I've ever seen.
Exactly.
Now
So yeah, this is the basic principle, right? Like you're not really it's not web development. It's not HTML. So you need to kind of use it in the way that it wants to be used, I guess. Or you make a custom component that does this all internally, which is also obviously fantastic. You don't have to redo the same thing twice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if we were to actually, why don't we just look? Where did my somewhere in here is the code editor. Here it is. And we go look at our source. We've got our scene. And down at the bottom, we should have our mesh.
If we save,
Yes.
and then if you scroll all the way to the right, because the formatting sucks.
Oh, right, because it's all the way over here.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
I'll look into that. that could be
Well,
improved.
actually, why don't I just do I'll just save to get prettier to work. And then we've got our mesh, our box geometry, our mesh standard material. I can componentize this sucker and just use it anywhere now.
Exactly.
I'm going to be a 3D modeling genius by the end of this.
So,
very proud of this ghost.
Yeah. So currently, when you change some values, they don't have constraints by default. So technically in 3JS, you can also just put whatever value you want. And it's annoying, but it's fine. Bit of visual editor that can help you control what's rendered and add constraints. So for example, for Rayleigh, in the provider config, try and put that in, put whatever value in it, like 1,000. And then just click off. I don't think that works. Technically, it didn't apply, even though it looks like something did, but it didn't apply. So if you click it and drag, so it has a constraint that is either a maximum of 10 or a minimum of 0.
Got it.
And this is available on any prop.
Okay.
So it's not magic, it's just JS doc. So if you click view source on the provider config,
click view source.
So in that little panel
Where the hell
in
did
provider
that go?
config.
Oh boy.
Yep. We've got the technology. Not that one, sorry. The next one under provider config. No, in the middle.
Provider.
Let's learn more. We're going to get
what
too
am
much
I doing?
information.
Okay, all right. View source.
My brain. The view source. So
several things just happened. One, I didn't realize when I was clicking view source that it was opening this side panel. I was like, it's opening a window and hiding it. So I'm looking all over all my other monitors trying to figure out where it went. 2, I can't read. And then 3, I got thrown by the flip on these.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. I have viewed source. So we've got the Rayleigh. Oh,
exactly. It defaults to 0.5 and we say what constraints we want.
That's very clever.
Maybe I need to put up a pull request against 3JS to just add all the constraints that are implicitly there, but currently not
And so this is JS doc. Are these standard JS doc things, or are you sort of like overloading the JS doc syntax?
I don't think they're standard things.
Okay.
But I think that's fine, right?
I mean, they're comments. At the end of the day, comments are there for you to do whatever the heck you want.
Exactly. And technically, it helps you, even if you weren't using Triplex, it's probably useful for you to know what the values should be, even if it takes a number that can be infinity.
Right.
Like for opacity, you only can ever define 0 to 1. Anything outside of that is just technically probably just capped to 0 and 1, but it also could be undefined behavior.
Yeah.
So
well, and this is the sort of thing that
code and the editor.
And you could probably put that into like a types package too, right? Which would be pretty dang cool.
Yes. What do we mean?
Well, how you can install @type/node so that you get those sorts of things. So if this is a type definition and you've got the JS doc in it, if there was
exactly.
type/triplex React 3 fiber, so that it kind of gives you the even if they don't want the PR, you could still potentially provide this in a way that would update the UI. It would probably suck to maintain that as a parallel package, but
It could, probably wouldn't. I think that they're quite open to changes.
Nice.
I might just do it because it'll improve the Triplex experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's always nice when when you get some guardrails from the UI. That does seem to it makes life just a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you remember earlier when you hovered over some of the props and got a description, that's all powered by TypeScript.
And this
type definitions. Yeah, exactly. So if you hover over Rayleigh, you'll get that description.
Oh, I got to focus on the app, but yes.
Come on.
That is.
Don't let me down.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is this is very, very cool. And it's also it makes me happy that you didn't have to invent a bunch of stuff to build a UI that feels like this?
If I did, I would have made it's Unity, like we're just making a proprietary thing again.
Right. And that right. And that's kind of what we all, I think, want to avoid. Like, I really love the idea of the source of truth being code and remaining code in a way that isn't like, because I've also seen like your code is your source of truth, but yeah, also like we put so much proprietary weird stuff into your code that it's no longer like a portable source of truth, And I like that nothing in here, okay, so you're overloading JS doc a little bit, but that is, to me, that's just documentation. This is very helpful to see when I look at the source code. Okay, my minimum is 0, my maximum is 10. I get that. And, as I'm looking at something like this and I come down to my mesh and I go to, copy paste this out to be a ghost, I would be able to actually, how much time do we have? We got like 5 minutes left, right?
We have the technology.
We've got 5 minutes. I'm going to make a component.
Yeah, do it.
All right. So in my components, I'm going to make a new file. We're going to call this ghost because this is the best ghost ever created. And then I'm going to export function ghost and return this mesh. And I assume I'm probably going to need to import some things for that to work properly.
No, it's all host stuff.
Oh, they're all built in. Okay, great. And then up here, I can import.
But you could do it in the UI instead. It's already there.
Oh, what, for real?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me come back out here.
WebSockets.
The magic. All right, so I'm coming down. I'm going to my components, and I have a ghost.
Bam.
Where'd my ghost go?
Press F. Let's go find it. Oh, it's on top of the one that already exists, probably.
Whoa, I just broke everything. F?
Because there's probably two ghosts, right? The one that we defined before, and then and then the other one. So it's there. Just press F, can focus it.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna delete our manual ghost. Now we've got our new ghost.
Nice.
Okay. Everybody's happy. Good. All right. Now what I want to do is I'm going to save this, and we see our ghost now. That's good. Then I'm going to come back in here, and I want to add some props. So let's just add a single one. We're going to do opacity, and I want to control that piece. So I'm going to say spookiness is going to be, by default, we'll say like 0.7. And then that is going to be defined as spookiness, and that's going to be a number. And I guess we'll make that optional since it will be defaulting. And then down here, the opacity, we're going to set to be spookiness. Okay. So then you said I can do something like this. How spoopy should this ghost be?
Very spoopy.
Turn it up for maximum spoop. All right. And then I can set a min, we'll say is 0.1. You need to be able to see the ghost. And then the max will be 1.
Exactly.
Okay. So I save this. Our ghost just changed. Did everybody see that? Then I come in here and I can drag. I drag. Look at that.
Constraints are set. Change the UI. Didn't have to reload anything. It's all there.
This is cool.
And yeah, you might notice the transforms are disabled because it doesn't take a position prop. In case you were wondering.
Oh.
Or any transform props.
Oh. Yeah. Cool.
But if you wanted to change if you wanted to change it, you can in the left-hand bar. So if you expand the ghost in the editor.
Expand the ghost in the editor.
So bottom left, expand that. Click the mesh.
And then I can start messing with this part, which isn't really what I'd want to do. So instead, I would want to do something like, let's take this here, And we
it is an
can
option.
drop this here. Nope. Like that. And then this becomes position instead. Working on the tiniest thing alive. And so now, looking at my ghost,
You might have to type it as a tuple.
Oh, right. Position is going to be, what is it? Just like that?
Tuple. So in an array, number.
Number.
There's definitely a song about number, I think.
Okay, now we've got our settings here. So if I come back out, I zoom out, I can select, maybe I can select my ghost. There's my ghost. And now I can move my spooky ghost around the scene. Holy crap, maximum Halloween. This is the best thing ever.
There you go.
All right. So as I said, I cannot believe it's already been the full, like almost the full 90 minutes. This flew by because I've been having a blast and I want to just keep playing for the rest of the day. Michael, for folks who want to do more, where should they go next? Like what are next steps?
So I would say there's 2 to 3 Discords that you'd want to jump on to just join the community first. It's very friendly. So one would be the Poimanders Discord, where React 3 Fiber is, I guess, just made. Well, I'm sure we can link it in the show notes. The second would be the Triplex Discord, so you can jump in. Nice. Google win.
I cannot believe the second one would be just worked. Sorry, what was the other one?
The Triplex Discord. So we have a Discord where you can jump in, see behind the scenes features that are being created, ask questions, get help. If you press / and search for Discord, you'll get the
Okay.
I think that's going to be a link. And yeah.
And you had a third one?
The third one would be the 3, probably there's 4 technically. 3JS Discord and the Web Game Dev Discord as well. They're all fantastic. I don't use the 3JS one that much, primarily because most of the fun people have converged on Web Game Dev, and any questions that you'd ask in 3JS, you'd ask in the Web Game Dev Discord anyway. That's not it.
I'll tell you what, send me a link to it later. I will put it into the show notes and we'll go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I have one anyways, which I'll just put in the chat for you. Done. So
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm also going to reshare it again because then it goes through my bot. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell everybody to go follow you on Twitter as well for updates on Triplex and things. And yeah, all right. So I'm gonna give one more shout out to our captioner Amanda, who's been here all day, keeping us in the accessible captions. Thank you. That's from White Coat Captioning, and it's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify and Vetsu Code. Thank you very much for sponsoring the show. Make sure you go and check out the schedule. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. It is going to be just fun, fun. So make sure you go. You can get on the Learn with Jason Discord, the newsletter, you add it to your calendar, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. With that, I think we're going to call this one done. Michael, any parting words for everybody?
Give it a go. Jump in. 3D Space is very interesting. Barrier to entry, reducing every day, and everything's more fun with friends. And I think Sunil would love me for saying that.
Wait,
making PartyKit.
Is your WebSocket stuff built on PartyKit?
It is not. It's just using it.
So we still love you, Sunil.
I talked to Sunil and asked him. We had a chat about it, but right now there's not a huge use case for it yet. But it might be later when Triplex does more interesting cloud services. Services. VC fun stuff. So yeah, just have a go. and jump in Discord. It's great.
All right, friends. Thank you very much, Michael, for being here. We will see the rest of you next time.